It is essential that as Christians we start supporting those civil magistrates that will take seriously their oaths to the Constitution of the United States. For it is in our country the Constitution which was written for the purpose of protecting the freedoms of the American people. Without an allegiance to constitutional government, we will not have the proper safeguards in place that we need. And I wish somehow I could reach you on this point. I wish somehow I could reach you. I wish somehow I could reach you out there in the internet audience. I wish somehow we could reach the pastors. And we could reach the Christian population of America, because there are still enough believers in America today that if the Christians would unite for the principles of freedom upon which our country was founded, we could restore those principles almost overnight. How do we reach the Christians? When are you going to recognize that this left-right paradigm, this Republican-Democrat paradigm, is simply a ploy to keep us chasing our tails? We think that in order to get change, we got to replace the Republican, if he's in office, with a Democrat. And then 4 years later, we're angry with the Democrat. And so we want change. And so we replace the Democrat with a Republican. And 4 years later, we still haven't had change. And yet, now we vote for the Democrat. And we have been doing this decade after decade after decade. Going back and forth. Conservative, liberal, Democrat, Republican. And nothing changes. The Republican Party at the national level touts itself as being a pro-life party. The Republican Party controlled the entire federal government politically from 2001 to 2006, early part of 2007. They controlled the Congress for 8 years. When George W. Bush was sworn in as a, quote, pro-life president in January of 2001, there were over 1 million babies that were being aborted every year in the wombs of their mothers. And when George W. Bush left office 8 years later, and Barack Obama was sworn in as president, there were still 1 million babies being aborted every year in the wombs of their mothers. 8 years of Republican rule, 8 years of the pro-life Republicans in charge of the Congress, the House, the Senate, the White House, and they've controlled the Supreme Court ever since Roe v. Wade in 1973, and not one unborn baby's life was saved. Not one. So now here we have a Democratic administration that is proudly pro-choice. But nothing changes. It doesn't matter whether you call yourself pro-life, pro-choice, nothing changes. It doesn't matter whether you call yourself Republican or Democrat, nothing changes. Call yourself liberal or conservative, nothing changes. And that's true in most of the crucial areas that we are concerned with. In most of the key fundamental issues that relate to our liberty, our Constitution, our freedoms, in most of the issues, it doesn't matter to a tinker's damn which party is in office. When are you going to wake up to that reality? When are you going to quit deluding yourself that just by simply going in and pulling the lever for whatever party you prefer, Democrat or Republican, expecting changes to be made, when are you going to realize that we are being had? The powers that are pulling the weight of this new utopia that they are constructing doesn't care whether it's Republican or Democrat. They control both parties at the national level. You know, the thing that was so aggravating to me about this as I was traveling around and as I talked to people in so many venues, anytime Congress wanted to do something about Roe v. Wade, they could do it. Every year, one lone congressman introduces the Sanctity of Life Act in the House of Representatives. And every year, it sits in the document room of the Capitol building and collects dust. Every year when George W. Bush was president, Ron Paul introduced the Sanctity of Life Act. What did President Bush do to promote that act? Nothing. What did the majority leader in the Senate do to promote that act? Nothing. What did the House of Representatives leader in the House, in the Congress do to promote the act? Nothing. What would the act do if passed by Congress? It would do two things. Number one, it would identify every unborn child as being a person under the law. How about that? The second thing it would do, under Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution, which Congress is clearly authorized to do, it would remove abortion from the jurisdiction of the court. Do you understand that if Ron Paul's bill, the Sanctity of Life Act, had passed at any time during the 6 years the Republicans were in charge of the Congress, or even today, now that the Democrats are in power, the minute that bill would become law, Roe v. Wade would be overturned. Just that fast. And yet I hear all these pro-life pastors and Christians, well, we got to work to elect a Christian president or a conservative president so he can appoint conservative judges that are going to get up there and run the Supreme. No, you don't! The Congress of the United States of America has the authority to rid the nation of Roe v. Wade